On ke off ni? Mic ni? Mute ni?
Okay, very good morning. We shall start our event today. And we are live. Thank you all for tuning in this morning. My name is Sharizan, your host for today. And a very good morning and welcome to the consultation session on Malaysia's second voluntary national review, VNR Report 2021 on SDG implementation progress. First of all, we would like to welcome Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri Mustafa Mohamad, our Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Economy. Yang berbahagia Tan Sri Datuk Sri Dr. Sulaiman Mahbub, Board of Trustee for MASA, Chairman of APPGM SDG, Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri Hajar Rohani Abdul Karim, and also the Vice Chairman of APPGM SDG, Yang Berhormat Puan Maria Chin Abdullah, our economist for UN Country Team Malaysia, Dr. Richard Marshall, senior officers from the Economic Planning Unit or EPU, to our fellow moderators, panelists from the government, parliamentary, civil society, and also think tank sectors. And of course, to all our participants here this morning, thank you for taking the time to join us this wonderful morning. A big round of applause to each and every one of you. Yes, all from the comforts of our offices and also from our homes as well. And we'll be running this event for 2 days from 9 a.m. right up till 1 p.m., where we will discuss on Malaysia's second voluntary national review of VNR report. Now, this is an event jointly organized by Institute Masa Depan Malaysia or MASA and the All-Party Parliamentary Group Malaysia on Sustainable Development Goals or APPGM-SDG in partnership with the Economic Planning Unit, the Malaysian CSO SDG Alliance, and the UN Malaysia country team. Now, today, for the next 2 days, we will be focusing on three main aims. The first one is to gather multi-stakeholders' perspectives on the VNR process, as well as the planning and implementation of SDGs. The second one, we are to create awareness and deepen participation in implementing SDGs projects at the local level, the district and local authority levels in Malaysia. And also to develop strategic recommendations for the enhancement of the Shared Prosperity Vision 2030 or SPV 2030 and the 12th Malaysia Plan from 2021 to 2025 by leaving no one behind. Now, before we start, we're going to share some ground rules as well. To all our speakers, kindly switch off your camera and mute your mic until your session begins. To all our viewers in Zoom, if you have any questions, we would encourage you to share it in our Q&A function on Zoom that we have available for you. To all viewers on Facebook Live, please share your questions through the comments section as well. And to our moderators, you may select your questions, whereas panelists will be able to respond to the questions through the Q&A function. Baiklah, a very good morning. I hope all of you had your coffee. It's going to be exciting to see where Malaysia will be in the next couple of years as well. To bid all of you a very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Datuk Sri Dr. Sulaiman Mahbub, our Board of Trustee from MASA, to bid all of you a very good morning. Dipersilakan.
Assalamualaikum. Very good morning, Saudara Sharizan. Muhammad Datuk Sri Mustafa Mohamad, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, in charge of the Economic Planning Unit, Chairman of APPGM SDG Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri Hajar Rohani Abdul Karim, and Vice Chairman of the APPGM SDG Yang Berhormat Puan Maria Chin Abdullah. The nation's Malaysia representative, Dr. Richard Marshall, friends and senior officers from the Economic Planning Unit, representatives from the civil society organizations, secretariat led by Professor Dr. Denison Jayasuriya, fellow moderators and panelists, honorable ladies and gentlemen. Today we are indeed honored to have the opportunity to collaborate with the Economic Planning Unit or the EPU of the Prime Minister's Department and the All-Party Parliamentary Group Malaysia on Sustainable Development Goals, that is APPGM SDG. In organizing this 2-day consultation session on Malaysia's second voluntary national review of VNR report 2021 on SDG implementation progress. It is indeed timely as the government has launched the Shared Prosperity Vision and the invitation during the 12th Malaysia Plan and the 13th Malaysia Plan from the period 2021 to 2030. Both SPV, or the Shared Prosperity Vision, and the SDG share a common aspiration, namely to uphold the same spirit and call to action to ensure no one is left behind. We hope that every Malaysian shall have an equitable sharing of the prosperity by 2030. I hope from these two-day consultations and engagement guided by the VNR report, we shall develop a more comprehensive analysis of our major achievements we have achieved thus far, identify the gaps and challenges we are facing at the moment, and plan our next steps to socioeconomic development as inspired by both SPV and the SDG. I would like to express my heartfelt appreciation to everyone for putting in your time and effort to participate in this session. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and thank you very much. Thank you, Sharizan.
Thank you very much, Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri. Thank you so much for the welcoming speech. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we shall proceed on. It gives me great pleasure to invite Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri Hajar Rohani Abdul Karim from APBGM SDG Chair and MP of Batang Lupa to share her remarks on the VNR process. Dengan segala hormatnya, dipersilakan.
Thank you, Saudara Sharizan, the MC for today. Good morning. Kepada Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri Mustafa Muhammad, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department. Kepada Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Datuk Sri Dr. Sulaiman Mahbub, Board of Trustee Masa Institute. Dr. Richard Marshall, Economist, the UN Country Team, Malaysia. Yang Berhormat Puan Maria Chin Abdullah, distinguished members of the panel, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan good morning. It is a privilege for the All-Party Parliamentary Group Malaysia on Sustainable Development Goals in collaboration with Masa Institute to organize this online consultation in conjunction with the presentation of the Malaysia's Second Voluntary National Review Report at the High-Level Political Forum 2021, which took place on the 15th July 2021. I am therefore delighted to welcome all to this consultation on the 2021 VNR report. I would like to take this opportunity to thank and congratulate the Government of Malaysia and specifically Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri Mustafa Muhammad and his EPU team for the second VNR report, which provides an overview of the targets and achievement, status and progress, issues and challenges, and finally the opportunities and the way forward. Malaysia has made significant progress in mainstreaming SDGs into the national development planning, especially through the 11 and the midterm review of the 11 plan. We are told that there is a very strong trust of the SDGs in the 12th Malaysia Plan 2021 to 2025. The APPGM SDG Secretariat, as well as the Malaysian CSO SDG Alliance, participated in both the technical and steering committees. We recognize that this is a multi-stakeholder engagement process, and this needs to be continued. I recognize that on page 120 of the VNR report, this is stated that the committees will meet regularly. Our role has been very helpful in assisting to achieve this agenda, especially in 2020, when we undertook the localizing efforts in 10 parliamentary constituencies. And now in 2021, we are reaching out to another 21 constituencies, inshallah. Our approach is unique as it is a bipartisan effort. We thank the government for providing a good highlight of our work of the APPGM SDG in the VNR through a box article on page 121, recognizing us as a partner in development. And on page 122, there is a highlight on the Malaysian CSO SDG Alliance, which serves as the secretariat of the APPGM-SDG. APPGM-SDG recognizes more need to be done at the grassroots, especially in the engagement at the level of state and local government. There is a reference to the formation of a district-level interagency, multi-stakeholder task force. We hope that more funds and resources will be allocated to address these concerns in the 12th Malaysia Plan. This 2.5-day VNR consultation is actually very timely in reviewing the progress Malaysia has made thus far. I also believe that with the esteemed key speakers lined up and various focus on SDGs that will be highlighted in our consultation today, it will give a strong emphasis towards the future national policy planning. My prayer is that our discussion today will keep in central focus on the progress, challenges, and way forward. We will have the vision and passion to make specific recommendations using the SDG framework to improve the quality of life for the people of Malaysia, especially the vulnerable ones, and making sure that no one is left behind. May I take this opportunity to convey my very best wishes for a smooth, fruitful, and effective discussions ahead. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Abu Hormat Datuk Sri Hajar Rohani Abdul Karim. Well, hope everything is going well so far. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to invite Dr. Richard Marshall, the economist for UN Country Team Malaysia, to share a few words. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dr. Richard Marshall.
Thank you, MC. Dato' Sri Mustafa Mohammed, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, fellow speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is both an honor and a pleasure to speak to you this morning on behalf of the United Nations, and especially in place of our departing resident coordinator, Stefan Priestman. I want to begin by commending EPU and the wider Malaysian government for delivering the VNR and for the contributions of civil society, of the result of the research team, the consultants who led on the report. I believe they've delivered an excellent VNR text and an exemplary VNR development process. The analysis and the reporting were robust and evidence-based, and the process was open and consultative. The emphasis on delivering an inclusive and sustainable recovery from COVID-19 was especially welcome. I also pay tribute to the Minister's presentation to the high-level political forum last week, which has won much praise for Malaysia. So the rationale of today and tomorrow's session is to follow up on Malaysia's second VNR, but crucially also to examine how this might be used to drive future SDG progress in Malaysia. And in my very brief remarks, I want to focus on the latter because I believe that VNR delivers several major contributions for policymaking and delivery. However, before I come to these, I always want to clarify the UN's role in relation to the VNR and to the SDGs more generally. And I want to make the point that foremost, the VNR is a nationally led process. These voluntary reports are authored by member state governments. They are reviewed and received by a nation's peers. And as such, the UN is only a facilitator and supporter, provider of technical advice and inputs and a guide to the process requirements. This position is also true of the SDGs themselves, which at heart remain a member state initiative, and governments are accountable for their delivery. And as such, the goals form a collective commitment between governments and the peoples of the world. This is not a weakness, but rather a source of their strength. SDGs and SDG reporting are not imposed or policed, nor are policy responses prescribed. The goals are a comprehensive framework that guides countries to accelerate their longer-term developmental progress. Now I come to how we might take forward the SDGs in the light of Malaysia's VNR experience. And I want to underline specifically the importance of the development process of the report as much as the report itself. I think there are three major contributions which might be leveraged. First and foremost, the VNR process provides a template for working in an integrated manner across many thematic areas and engaging many stakeholders to analyze progress to date and identify the key priorities faced. This very much embodies the spirit of the goals of leaving no one behind, but also delivering through a single nation approach or whole of nation approach. Civil society played a pivotal role in development of the VNR, and that was through the good offices of the CSO Alliance. Government's approach was also open and inclusive, and this was crucial. Going forward, this should be maintained, and consideration might also be given to how we engage other actors, particularly the private sector. Different levels of government were also vital. For example, through the alignment of the 6 voluntary local reviews, the VLRs, being undertaken in 6 Malaysian cities, and the work of the APPGM in their constituencies. These models offer real examples of how other localities also might be engaged. Second, the VNR provides an unparalleled evidence base for reporting on and thinking about SDG progress and the trajectory of change. And this is particularly noteworthy is the innovative mix of data analytics, but also qualitative reporting that might be used in future years. I think this particularly offers advantages in relation to COVID-19, since the impacts of COVID-19 are often lagged and difficult to read from official data sources. Third, and perhaps most significantly, the VNR offers a bridge to the heart of government policymaking, and this is what many of the sessions during this event center on. This offers a mechanism for linking to and strengthening the suite of official processes which are in place to monitor and deliver the SDGs in Malaysia. These include the SDG roadmap being led by EPU, SDG costing and budgeting tools being developed by the Ministry of Finance, and Malaysia's statistical data set being compiled by the Department of Statistics. Minister, fellow speakers, ladies and gentlemen, I will close there. I underline the United Nations and its agencies will continue to actively contribute to SDG delivery in Malaysia, and I wish you all well with your discussions in the sessions today and tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Richard Marshall. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to invite our Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Economy for his keynote address. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Yang Berhormat Menteri Datuk Seri Mustafa Mohamad.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi. Terima kasih saudara moderator, saudara Syarizan, khususnya Tan Sri Dr. Sulaiman Mahbub, Board of Trustees MASA, Datuk Sri Hajar Rohani, my colleague who's chair of the APPGM SDG, MP for Batang Lupa, Deputy Chair Puan Maria Chin, and Dr. Richard Marshall, speakers, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to begin by thanking the organizers for inviting me to say a few words this morning. Secondly, I would like to commend the organizers for bringing us together, the think tank, Institute Masa Depan Malaysia, where Tan Sri Sulaiman is playing a very active role, and Dr. Dennison and his team, the APPGM SDG chair, and of course the chair, Yang Muhammad Dato' Hajar Rohani Karim. This is a very healthy development, bringing together some leading minds, personalities to discuss some pertinent issues, especially those highlighted in the VNR report. And Yang Muhammad Dato' Rohani made reference to pages 121, 122. These are special pages to you, Yang Muhammad, and also to Dr. Dennison and your team. So I would like to congratulate you for organizing this very important event. As mentioned by Dr. Richard Marshall, on the 15th of July, I presented the Malaysia Voluntary National Review 2021 at the UN High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. There was a very good video presented by my team, very impressive. There were a few questions, many questions. One of which came from Norama. Yeah. So once again, thank you, Dr. Rohani and Dr. Denson, for taking a very big interest in this report. As you know, the first VNR was presented in 2017, and in that year, the focus was mainly on government initiatives in adopting SDGs within the framework of the National Socio-Economic Agenda, as highlighted by Ahmad Dato' Rohani, the 11th Malaysia Plan, and also the midterm review. And as alluded to by Dr. Richard Marshall and your Dr. Rohani as well, there's been very extensive consultations, 300 groups altogether representing academia, CSOs, businesses, ministries and state governments. And increasingly, we are engaging with our people at local level, states and local authorities. And I might say that the all-party parliamentary group has provided has provided us a lot of push and motivation to do more at the local level. So thank you once again for being very much involved in the process in coming up with this report. As you know, it's been 6 years since world leaders, including Malaysia, adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And this report highlighted a number of areas where we have achieved progress. And poverty certainly is one, reduction in income inequality, good growth. The pandemic, of course, has resulted in a number of challenges. We're still facing them. Unfortunately, it's still with us. We are working very hard to get Malaysia out of this predicament. As you know, we're coming up with a national recovery plan. And on Monday, next week, 26th of July, the Prime Minister will be presenting a plan for the country in the next few weeks, how to get out of this very challenging period. This morning, I would like to focus on a few areas. Firstly, of course, poverty is still a big subject. I'll say a few words on poverty. I'll say a few words about climate change and ESGs, which is a very important element in the Sustainable Development Goals. And finally, something about the process itself. Let me begin with the process. I'm here to underline my commitment to continue engaging with CSOs in particular. This is a very important part of my work at EPU, not only through the Economic Planning Unit, but also through the Economic Action Council. We've been engaging with many parties. And of course, the beauty of the all-party parliamentary group, chaired by Dr. Rani, is that it is bipartisan. We started with 10, and I'm one of them, 10 members of parliament. And then we went to 20, and now this morning, 21. I hope that number is correct. The last number I heard was 20. So from 10 to 20, now 21. So this goes to show that this movement is gaining traction in the country. But more importantly, from my point of view, it represents the broad spectrum of the Malaysian political landscape, bringing people together, which is a culture we need to encourage going forward. So the process has been wonderful in coming up with this report. We had a pleasure of engaging with so many parties, and we'll continue to do so in monitoring SDGs. So that's point number one. Yeah, I just want to assure everyone that EPU is committed to talking to more people. And in this connection, on the 17th of June, EPU with Samba University, Jeffrey Sachs Center for Sustainable Development, organized a program on poverty. And at the end of that seminar, I announced the setting up of a poverty circle. We had our first meeting on the 1st of July, and tomorrow we're having a second meeting. Tomorrow we're discussing issues faced by our Orang Asli, yeah, how to uplift the socio-economic status of the Arab Orang Asli community. And next month, we're going to get our friends from Sabah and Sarawak to share with us what's the best way of eradicating poverty in Sabah and Sarawak. And going forward, we're going to look at the PPR flags, yeah, and urban poverty, minorities as well. So that was the outcome of the engagement we had with the Jeffrey Sachs Center at Sandhya University on the 1st of July, the setting up of the poverty circle, which I chair. So this is all about the inputs, the process of engaging with the wider audience in this country. Number two, let me say a few words about climate change, ESG, and green growth. This is a topic which is gaining a lot of traction. It is true that we have not done enough in this area. Although our forest cover is more than 50%, we've done very well in this respect, but we know that there are many organizations, CSOs out there who think that we need to do a lot more in promoting green growth. There's been a lot of discussion on the circular economy, a concept on sustainable consumption and production practices. This is an area that Malaysia, as an upper middle income country, will have to embrace. green growth. And ESGs is also a topic which is gaining traction. It is very relevant to Malaysia as well, indeed the world. Environmental sustainability and governance. Yeah? These are three very important principles. And I hope through the discussions of this nature, by having this platform and many other platforms being organized by various parties, we will promote more active discussion in the area of environment, sustainability and governance to make sure that development is sustainable, consistent with the UN's SDG goals. Finally, let me go back to poverty. It's important to ensure that in devising policies and strategies on poverty, they've got to be data-driven. Many of these policies are based on the eKase platform developed by the ICU in the PEMS department. Of course, some agencies are very active on the ground, including the welfare department, which was under, at one time, Yang Amat Datuk Rohani, she knows this very well. So going forward, I want to assure everyone that poverty is a very important agenda. Poverty alleviation and eradication, this is a very important agenda of the Malaysian government, and this will feature quite prominently in the upcoming 12th Malaysia Plan, which will be presented to Parliament later this year. So poverty is going to be data strategies to alleviate poverty more and more going forward. It's going to be data-driven. Secondly, it's going to be more micro in approach. We're going to the local level in the Sabah, Sarawak, Orang Asli, rural areas, PPR departments, minorities, yeah, and we encourage stakeholders, CSOs in particular, to share inputs with us. The government does not know everything. We've been getting lots of feedback from our colleagues in ministries, agencies, and state governments, from the UN as well. I would like to commend the UN for working very closely in poverty alleviation. But going forward, I think there's a lot more that needs to be done in order to alleviate poverty. And in this connection, I would like to commend once again the all-party parliamentary group, which has gone to the ground this year, 2021 parliaments. And last year, there were at least 30 projects, specific projects, supported, of course, by MOF and EPU, implemented by the all-party parliamentary group to address poverty, especially in the marginalized, among the marginalized communities, including the Orang Asli community. I like, I'm fond of highlighting my own experience. I have a small Orang Asli community in Jeli, and there are two projects, one involving batik, another involving mushroom, the growing of mushroom. So these projects have done quite well. But of course, under the present COVID environment, there's some challenges there. So ladies and gentlemen, let me commend once again the organizers, in particular Masa. We can see Dr. Sulaiman here, who's been a friend of mine for many years. We got Yang Amat Datuk Rohani, a colleague for many years as well, and Dr. Dennison, whom we have known for a long time. And of course, the UN here has been working actively with EPU. In my personal view, there's got to be a lot more of this sharing of ideas, best practices, so that we can produce better policies in order to address some basic challenges on poverty, on income inequality, on climate change, on green growth. So once again, I would like to thank all of you for the collaboration, for the cooperation extended to the EPU in coming up with this report. The VNR, which I presented at the high-level meeting on the 15th of July, a few days ago last week. And the report, of course, has been well received. And it is my hope that going forward, unfortunately, we got COVID, which has imposed a few challenges. But I hope that there'll be more discussions on this very important subject. I think awareness is a very important issue. Yeah, I've been getting feedback coming from a few places that there are many Malaysians out there who do not know what this whole thing is all about, what SDGs is all about. Yeah? So I think that's an equally important issue. So by having programs of this nature, we can ensure that more Malaysians understand and embrace SDGs. And of course, it's very much a part of policymaking. It is at the core of policymaking in government and in the EPU. And once again, let me thank you for this opportunity to say a few words. I wish you all the best. I hope that there'll be more programs of this nature to enhance awareness on SDGs and how we can work together governments, federal, public, and local authorities, members of parliament from across the political divide, CSOs, the academic community, how we can work together in order to produce a better Malaysia, better lives for everyone. Thank you. On that note, it is my pleasure to declare open this consultation. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Mustafa Mohamad. Before we let you go, we would like to take a photo together. So I'd like to request for all our panelists and moderators, if you can please turn on your cameras. We're going to have Farah from MASA to snap a couple of photos as well. Jangan lupa senyuman manis anda, senyuman Malaysia kita. Yeah. Okay, Farah, I'm going to hand the camera over to you to take a couple of photos. And when you're ready, please let me know. And then we shall start the plenary session as well in a few moments.
Okay, thank you, Sharizan. Okay, everyone, let's just switch on the photo and just look into the camera. I will just do a few shots, yeah? 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's just do a couple more. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Smile, everybody. Okay, I'm good on my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Farah. Thank you once again, Topa, for your keynote address as well. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's proceed on to the plenary session. And to introduce the plenary session as well as our panelists for today, it gives me great pleasure to invite the Malaysian CSO SDG Alliance Co-Chair and Senior Fellow for MASA. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall hand the mic over to you to Professor Datuk Dr. Denison Jayasuriya.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. MC, and thank you, Datuk Sri, for that opening keynote address, and also to all the speakers in the opening session. I think, Datuk Sri, you rightly pointed out the sharing of ideas are central in this process, and drawing on the best practices so that we can make better policies and the delivery of policies. I think we heard very clearly this morning about the VNR process, and Dr. Richard laid the framework. But let me just remind ourselves that when the SDGs were decided by the General Assembly in September 2015, the commitment was that each country would once in 4 years produce the VNR report. And as we heard in the opening session, it's not just the report, but also the process of the preparation, which is to be multi-stakeholder. And in the 2017 experience and 2021 experience, the Malaysian CSO SDG Alliance was active in both the situations. And of course, this year, we also had this opportunity, not just as CSO SDG Alliance, but also as the Secretariat. We are very privileged this morning to have Dr. Junika Muhammad, the Deputy Director General Macro of the Economic Planning Unit, to provide an overview of the report. We know on July 15th, the Minister did a presentation that day. And also we have reviewed the report. But I think it's important for us this morning to have a comprehensive overview. We have worked both at the APPGM and at the Malaysian CSO SDG Alliance closely with the EPU. And Dr. Junika has often been very patient to meet us, to interact with us. And so, Doctor, can I pass the time over to you? You have 20 minutes to provide the overview. And if anyone has any questions, and if the time permits, we will take it up. You can write it on, and pass it on to the Secretariat or alert me. Dr. Junika, your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yang Bahagia Prof. Datuk Danisan Jayasuriya, the moderator for this session. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang Bahagia Datuk Seri Mustafa Muhammad, Minister in the Prime Minister Department. Yang Bahagia Tan Sri Datuk Seri Dr. Sulaiman Mahmud, Board of Trustee MASA, YB Datuk Seri Hajah Rohani Abdul Karim, PPGM, SDG Chair, and also MP of Batang Lupa, Dr. Richard Marshall, UN economists. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you APPGM, SDG, and MASA for inviting EPU to give an overview of the VNR 2021 that was presented by YB Minister in the Prime Minister Department at the HLPF last week. Ladies and gentlemen, today I would like to share in this introductory session an overview of the works that we have been done in Malaysia in terms of SDG as well as on the VNR 2021. In terms of SDG implementation in Malaysia, first, we have successfully embedded the 17 SDGs into our national development plans since the 11 Malaysia Plan, and we will continue to do so in our future economic development plans. We have also formulated the National SDG Roadmap Phase 1 and is available on our website and is in the process of developing the SDG Roadmap Phase 2. Second, we have established SDG governance structure with multi-stakeholder participation. This governance structure is led by the National SDG Council, chaired by YAB Prime Minister. The Council sets the national agenda and monitor the implementation of SDGs at the national level. The Council is supported by the national implementation of the National Steering Committee on SDG, chaired by the Director General of the EPU, which will coordinate as well as oversee the implementation of SDG. And third, we have developed SDG monitoring and reporting system by significantly improving data availability of the SDG indicators and develop the SDG data dashboard system. Department of Statistics play a key role in ensuring that SDG data will be further strengthened. And we are committed to present our progress to the United Nations High-Level Political Forum in New York through the VNR mechanism. We have presented the first VNR in 2017 and also presented our second VNR on the 15th of July. In terms of the report of our VNR 2021, let me share some of the things that we have done. Prior to our report in 2021, in 2016, actually the Cabinet agreed to report the development of SDG implementation once in every 4 years, as mentioned by Dr. Danisan just now. And through our VNR at the UN High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. And in 2017, we have put up our first report. And in this first VNR, the focus is on government initiatives in eradicating poverty and promoting prosperity. Learning from the experience in 2017, the preparation of VNR 2021 adopted the whole of nation approach, aimed at being inclusive and consultative. The objectives are to fulfill the requirements of producing a quality and comprehensive report, as well as create further engagement and ownership among the stakeholders of the SDGs. And using the 2030 agenda as a framework, relevant policies and progress under the various SDGs were reviewed and examined to see how they contributed to sustainable development, areas which were lacking as well as opportunities for further improvement or strengthening. And in terms of our VNR 2021, the preparation took us slightly more than 6 months to complete. The EPU spearheaded the preparation of VNR with the formation of steering committee and technical working group. The SC, our steering committee, discussed on the content and endorsed the VNR report before presenting it to the cabinet, while the technical working groups verify the accuracy of information and data in this report. Participation in this process was well received with active representation from ministries and agencies, non-government organizations, civil society bodies, such as APPGM, academia, and private sector stakeholders. This effort was supported by UNCT in Malaysia, as well as UNESCAPE. In overseeing the implementation, monitoring, and reporting of the SDG, Malaysia has established a governance structure I've mentioned just now, comprising all stakeholders headed by the National SDG Council. The Council sets the national agenda and monitor the implementation of SDG at the national level and report to the UN HLPF. The Council is supported by steering committee chaired by DG of EPU, and will coordinate and oversee the implementation of SDG. And during the VNR 2021 process, we have added a new working committee, namely Finance for Sustainable Development working committee that will look into financing need of the SDG and identifying the scope that are related to finance. And moving forward, I would like to share here today that we are considering to add more working group to take on board the whole of government approach, specifically looking at the interests of CSOs and private sector. The VNR 2021 benefited from enhanced data availability, with more than 50% of SDG indicators fully available now. The data availability for SDG indicators have improved from 99 fully available indicators, or 41% in 2016, to 126 indicators, or 51% in 2019. However, the availability of data varies across the SDGs. Data gaps are particularly apparent in the planet and peace dimensions. In realizing the importance of data at the local level, DOSM has established My Local Stats. In addition to data, we also receive input from various stakeholders for the write-up, and many contributed box articles for the VNR 2021. And as mentioned just now, APPGM has also contributed a box article in this VNR. Realizing the importance of ensuring effective SDG implementation, it is vital for Malaysia to localize the SDG as much as possible at the local level and district level. Increased participation of CSOs are very much needed to ensure no one is left behind. The federal government supports SDG project at the local levels through the allocation and distribution of development budget. The main objective of this budget allocation is to drive the development growth in the local government community. Under this budget, funding is allocated to local council to carry out small-scale project with a value of less than 1 million ringgit. The scope of small-scale projects consists of infrastructure development, public facilities, safety, and socio-economic projects. Additionally, 6 cities in Malaysia, namely Shah Alam, Kuala Lumpur, Subang Jaya, Putrajaya, Alor Gajah, and Melaka, have engaged in the voluntary local review or VLR process, where states and local governments in Malaysia have been progressively engaged in the development of VLRs to report on the achievement of SDGs based on existing planning and development blueprints. These blueprints include local development plans, smart city frameworks, low carbon city, and local Agenda 2021 program. The support to VLR have been framed within Malaysia SDG cities, where Urbanized Malaysia and Ministry of Housing and Local Government have been working for many years to provide cities with an overall strategy and guiding frameworks to implement the SDG in their territories. All of these efforts will assist in framing the strategies that will guide the efforts of SDG localization by the government and this will be explored further in the drafting of the SDG Roadmap Phase 2 for the period 2021 to 2025, which we will see a more collaborative effort in implementing SDG at the local level. And SDG localization must start with the understanding of the spirit of SDG at every level and using SDG-based solution to address the needs of different communities, particularly the vulnerable groups or communities, including addressing the effect of climate change. This is even more prevalent now in building back the nation's resilience given the aftershock of COVID-19. In the overall, Malaysia has made progress in the SDG across 5 dimensions of sustainable development, particularly in alleviating poverty, enhancing public infrastructure, as well as public healthcare services. The COVID-19 pandemic, however, has impacted Malaysia's SDG progress negatively, particularly in terms of poverty alleviation and inequalities. In 2020, the GDP declined by 5.6% and resulted in higher unemployment rate. Among the key challenges in implementing all 70 SDGs include the prolonged global economic downturn following the COVID-19 pandemic, which has impacted domestic economic growth negatively. The incidence of poverty increased to 8.4% in 2020, according to an initial estimate by DOSM. The pandemic also requires changes in the way humans interact and business operate, where the use of technology is increasing. The new norms exhibit socio-economic inequalities and imbalances. There is also increasing burden in healthcare due to the surge of NCD or non-communicable diseases. The current unsustainable consumption and production has also caused environment degradation, which affected the well-being of the people. Physical and financial access to justice need to be addressed, particularly for rural communities. And the public awareness of SDG is still low. In this regard, programs related to SDG need to be intensified, especially at the district level. And disaggregated data also need to be further improved to ensure better monitoring. And lastly, the interrelated data. The interrelated nature and cross-sectoral SDG targets requires the involvement of multi-stakeholders. The private sector, academia, CSOs, and local communities have important roles in implementing the SDGs. And in this regard, efforts in enhancing the SDG implementation can be further coordinated in the future. And the VNR 2021, in short, present 45 recommendations to chart the way forward for the SDG across the 5 dimensions of sustainable development and means of implementation. And some of the recommendations that I can share here are addressing poverty and building inclusive society, improving regional balance and inclusion, refocusing healthcare provision to address NCD and promote healthy lifestyle, restoring growth momentum, propelling growth of high potential industries and micro, small, and medium enterprises, developing future talent, boosting digitalization and advanced technology, advancing green growth for sustainability and resilience, exploring carbon neutral pathway, strengthening public sector service delivery, and lastly, intensifying efforts to better against corruption. And as a conclusion, the government is committed to ensure that national development priorities will continue to be aligned to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We believe that effective execution of the 12th plan will contribute to achievement of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, while SDG Roadmap Phase 2 will advance the SDG agenda during the plan period. Thank you. I'll stop here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Junika. I think you have provided a very comprehensive presentation. And I think it's very significant in the way that you have summarized not just the process, but also some of the key directions forward, linking to the various steps forward. Let me just start the process by raising one or two questions based on what you have presented just now. I just thought, because you mentioned SDG roadmap part 2, when would EPU develop this and what might be the engagement process? Many of us were part of the roadmap 1, and that document was quite useful in the lead up, but now this might be important. That is one question. The second question, Dr. Junika, is you made specific reference to the 45 recommendations in the concluding chapter. To what extent are these incorporated into the 12th Malaysia plan, and whether you have any more details? I know the 12th plan hasn't been tabled in Parliament yet, so you might be restricted in what you might want to highlight, but at least the commitment and direction is something you might want to comment. Just 2 points, Dr. Junika, and then I will see what are the comments on the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Datuk, for your 2 questions. Regarding the SDG roadmap phase 2, we are actually already initiating the process of developing the roadmap. In our timeline, it will be more aggressive next month. And in terms of the framework, that we will be using the same framework as we use the approach in developing VNR 2021, because we think that the whole of government approach actually is the way forward for us, in order to ensure that we get all the necessary inputs and we hear all the views from all stakeholders. And in terms of the governance structure, I believe that we will be using the same governance structure. We will have the steering committee, we will have the technical committee, and we will also seek help from various parties involved, not only from the government side, but also CSOs, the private sectors, academia. And as I mentioned before, that in terms of the governance structure, we have the working group already established under the National SDG governance structure. We will be mobilizing this working group as well to develop the roadmap this time around, Dr. Prof. And okay. In terms of the second question, regarding the 45 recommendations to chart the way forward for SDG, indeed, actually, looking across this list of recommendations, I think it suffices to say that this point actually have been put and reconsidered in our 12th Malaysia plan, where we draft the plan in the respective chapters. So rest assured that key points from this recommendation are actually already embedded in the 12th plan implementation, because when we are doing the 12th plan preparation, we are mapping out the need of Agenda 2030, as well as the wawasan kemakmuran bersama inside the 12th plan. So I think I would say that most of the key variables that we need to address are already in our 12th plan, Dr. Prof. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There were 2 questions in the Q&A, but I only see one. Rama, can I see the second one as well? This, Dr. Junika, might be actually quite general. This is from Bina. There is a need to remove the restrictions on employment of foreign spouses married to Malaysians in the best interest of the family. Will the statement of the prohibition from employment be removed from their visas so that they can contribute to the taxes and the GDP of the country, and to ensure that binational Malaysian families are not left behind? That's one question, Doc. It might actually be taken up later, but we have time. There is another question. Can you elaborate the reasons why Goal 5, gender equality, is excluded from the economic roadmap? How is the roadmap addressing the persistent pay gap and inequality of economic opportunities access? I know a number of people had asked me why SDG 5 was not included. Shanti Dairiam also has a question. Although Goal 5 of the SDGs is a standalone goal, the UN has emphasized that Goal 5 on gender equality is cross-cutting goal. Sorry, okay, I think more questions are coming. With that, I will cross-cutting goal across all SDGs. What efforts and especially indicators pertaining to Goal 5 has been undertaken to operationalize Goal 5 across all SDGs? That's a question. There is an anonymous attendee. Can you elaborate the reasons why Goal 5 equality is excluded? Okay, I read that. Amy Tam raises, what are the direct role of the state governments and local authorities? We talk of the whole of government approach, but their role is mostly confined via KPKT. Doc, there are a few questions. You might want to take them together. Dr. Junika, I'm not sure whether you could see them as well.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Datuk. Thank you for those who asked questions just now. I might not be able to answer you directly because the question are quite specific and it's not under the jurisdiction of you. But we will refer to the question to the relevant agencies later. In terms of Goal 5, why we are not addressing Goal 5 in the VNR? Actually, we are guided by the UN framework in coming up with this report. And even though we have not highlighted Goal 5 in terms of indicators, progress, and performance, is there in the DOSM indicators, the latest report in 2019. I think in terms of progress so far, we can refer to the report. And it's not to say that we have left out gender inequality in Malaysia, because in terms of the policy, it has been there for quite some time in terms of looking at participation, more women participation in the labor force, inequality in opportunity for women. So it's there actually all this while. So I think that's my general answer to the question relating to the gender, the Goal 5, Datuk Prof. And in terms of the role of states in terms of SDG, yeah, I've mentioned that it is the KPKT, because when we work between federal and states, the mechanism, we are using the mechanism of when we is specifically in terms of channeling allocation from federal to state. So I'm referring to this mechanism actually in saying that KPKT become the medium in terms of helping out federal in terms of putting in money for state and district. So it's not to say that states and district are not important, because they are the one that actually at the grassroots level in ensuring that we can localize SDG as much as possible. So in 12 plan, we are hoping that more works can be done in ensuring that we can cover more area and more programs in this regard, Dr. Prof.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Bina's question could be taken up again tomorrow morning because we have inclusive economic growth, which does cover SDG 8 and 10, addressing inequalities and employment and so forth. Doc, or I think one of the panelists could address that tomorrow. There is one more question, Dr. Junika, that has come up. What would be areas of monitoring and evaluation function from the non-governmental sector that can be improved to better provide evidence for the VNR? So I think we do provide input, but whether in monitoring and evaluation, there is an ongoing process between now and the next VNR. Doctor, this question came up just now.
Thank you for the question. I think in terms of monitoring, as I mentioned just now, we have all the committees set up, of which actually I did not mention that who are in this committee. Actually, in each of these respective working groups, as I showed in the slide just now, in terms of governance, actually, members in the working groups consist of not only government, but also the CSOs, private sectors, NGOs, as well as academia. So when we are doing monitoring under each respective working group, the inputs from non-government are also taken into account through this committee. And I also mentioned just now that we are considering to add up more working group to take into account the important role of CSOs and the private sectors in contributing in ensuring that we can successfully implement SDGs in Malaysia. Thank you, Dr. Prof.
Thank you. Doc, there is, thank you for that input. Doctor, just to follow up on the working groups and role, you did say, and I did see that in the Laporan, that there are 6 working groups. I noticed SDG 16 is put under well-being, and SDG 17 under finance. So whether EPU might consider having separate working groups for that. Sorry, I didn't raise it in our technical committee. I only saw it now when you highlighted in your PowerPoint and in the explanation. Sorry to put you on the spot, Doctor. Any comment?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Prof. Thank you for highlighting it. Actually, because when we mentioned that we want to consider another additional working groups, actually, it's not just adding in working groups, but I think in this exercise, we will also be looking at streamlining the distribution of SDG goals to each of the respective working groups. So it will be more enhanced in ensuring that we can deliver what we want to achieve in terms of SDG. Thank you again for highlighting it, Prof. Thank you.
Thank you, because we see in the VNR Chapter 6, bringing governance, social cohesion, and partnership. So maybe 16 and 17 like how this is just a pandangan only, Doctor. There is a new question. This question is a question on inclusivity. Are race-based policies still relevant moving forward under inclusive development? So the question directly, let me see, in that context. Doc, are you able, the idea of inclusivity and race-based policies in the step forward?
I think I think this question is more appropriate to be discussed in the next session where the topic is on inclusivity. But in general, I would just say that in terms of putting in policy for Malaysia, I think it has been always guided by the idea of inclusivity in saying that no one should be left behind, and we are not putting in race as the framework for policy, but we are putting in terms of the pillar are for growth, for inclusivity, for economic development, for health, for education, for talent. So that's the pillar. But who we should help, who will be given priority, those will be those that are vulnerable, those that need the most help. So I think that's the principle of the government putting in policy. So I think this has to be understood. Dr. Prof. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the recognition in development planning towards very strong commitment to inclusive development and leaving no one behind, and the monitoring of it through SDGs could be very significant. Doc, sorry, ada soalan. I see there is still time. If I can just pinpoint, Shanti Dairiam has raised again. It might be for you, or I'll just read it. Doctor, you can see whether you want to comment or pass it on. Malaysia has ratified 3 human rights treaties on women, children, and disabled persons that are essential to ensure no one is left behind. The data, oops, sorry, I lost it. The data and obligations and monitoring of these treaties need to be synchronized with the monitoring of the SDGs. But we are failing in our reporting obligations under the treaties. How do you explain this? That is one. Another one, without the endorsement of the 12th Malaysia Plan in the Parliament, how does the government, how does the governance and funding for initiative will take place? You could, Doc, say when the 12th Malaysia Plan can come up. Can Dr. Junika please include the latest progress update on gender equality? I think gender is a very strong theme today in the VNR report, update being 2019. One more, Doc, this is the first time involved in this session. May I know why SDG 11, sustainable cities and sustainable communities, I think was left out, since the discussion also mentioned development and creating communities. Final question, Dato, reference to our EPU YB minister, what are the steps taken to create awareness on SDGs to Malaysia in general? Don't worry, Doc, itu sahaja. I think a lot of people want to interact with you, and this is a positive sign. Over to you, Doc, on our treaty obligations and SDG monitoring, as well as the 12th plan and so forth. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Prof. In terms of the treaty and the issue on human rights, I think government has made commitment in saying that we will continue in our stated commitment to ensure that we are in line with whatever we agreed internationally. So I don't have the detail in saying that why and why. I cannot answer that right now specifically, Datuk Prof. I believe that we will seek the right answer. Perhaps those who has the question, you can email me so that I can get the right answer personally, email to you. And in terms of the 12 Malaysia plan, government actually has made a commitment that we will wait for the parliament to be tabled to parliament first before it can be released to the public. So we are waiting for announcement when it will be tabled, and I believe that it will be this year. Hopefully it will not be towards the end of the year, because we have also been acknowledged that the first session, the special session will commence next week. So hopefully we will be able to table the 12th plan at the later session.
Doc, there was one more, why SDG 11 was left out. I think these were thematic chosen.
Yeah, I think this is concerned with my answer just now in saying that for this VNR report, we are given to focus on in terms of UN perspective. We were asked to focus on certain SDGs. So it's not that we left out because it's not important, but because of this framework of VNR report and the indicators and the data are available in tracking the progress of this SDG.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we have had a very fruitful discussion, Dr. Junika, your presentation plus the Q&A. We have now 119 people present. I think the interest on the VNR, the follow-up, the monitoring through the Q&A has been significant. The Secretariat promises that all questions will be answered. We are in the process of compiling a report in which the Q&A will be posted, and we will secure the answers through the support of EPU from the relevant government agencies before it's sent out. So I think we come to the end of this session and we move on. We know very clearly there are over 45 recommendations. Government has made a very clear promise, both in the minister's speech, in the VNR report, and now by Dr. Junika, the Deputy DG, that multi-stakeholder participation, the working groups will be active over this period between 2021 to 2025 before the next VNR report. We heard that the SDG Roadmap 2 consultations will begin, which I think will look at specific areas of ensuring the cross-cutting nature, whether it is gender, whether it is inclusive development, and especially ensuring no one is left behind becomes the center of not just policy thrust, but also policy delivery and implementation. So with that note, thank you very much for being together. I pass it back to our MC for the next section. Dr. Junika, thank you, and I appreciate your openness on the spot to jawab soalan-soalan tadi.
Thank you,
Terima kasih. Okay, back to you, Mr. MC.
Thank you very much.